Good day, everyone. It's Joel here again with another Samurai Pulse edition. This time we've got Nate Boyer, Green Beret, actor, writer, director, and now host of Survive the Raft on Discovery. How you doing this morning, Nate?
I'm doing good, Joel. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Thanks for asking, man. Let's just jump right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Survive the Raft?
Yeah, Survive the Raft is as you mentioned, a show on Discovery. People can also stream it on HBO Max, but it's every episode comes out on Sunday evenings on Discovery, and essentially it's based on a social experiment that was conducted 50 years ago. So back in 1973, this anthropologist named Santiago Genovese, he wanted to see what would happen if you put people from all walks of life together in a situation where there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to escape for a long period of time. Like, what kind of conversations would come up? But more importantly, like, would these people put aside their differences and work together for the common good, to survive the trip, essentially? So this trip was, he put 10 people on a raft, very much like we did. And they floated from the Canary Islands in Spain to Mexico, across the Atlantic Ocean. It took about 101 days. And, absolute chaos ensued, of course. And a lot of these people, they didn't have a ton of experience on the water necessarily. They're not, it's not like it was a big group of sailors. And they're in it's a big raft. It's 60 by 40 foot. We recreated it for our show.
Right.
And they had a sail and all that stuff, but still, you're drifting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to figure out food and all this other stuff. So, anyway, it was quite an experience. When the tabloids heard about this trip, they called it the sex raft, because
That's right.
some people had, slept together on the boat, or on the vessel. And so, but they kind of missed the point, with the tabloids. It was obviously a headline, and it made sense that they were promoting in that way, but that's not what the trip was about. And that's not what really ended up happening. Like, a lot of these people, although they were from all different walks of life, really did come together. So now, 50 years later, once again, we're in divisive times. Back then it was the end of the Vietnam War and Watergate and Roe versus Wade. And now, some of these similar themes are coming back up.
Very true.
We wanted to see what would happen if we recreated this experience. So we did it in the Pearl Islands down in Panama. And it was 21 days, not 101 days, but still long enough. By day one, there were already people kind of at each other's throats a bit, but it was really special to see, and unique from my perspective, to have that opportunity, to watch these 10 people who started with 10, and it dwindles as we go. Or I guess 9, started with 9, excuse me. And just to see what would happen if people were sort of forced to work together, and have the opportunity to put those differences aside and work together, and they don't always do that, but at least have the opportunity to.
Right. No, thanks for that. That's very, it's a very interesting social experiment. And I did read about the original, Akali one, and what that went through, and how that turned out. Actually, it kind of ended, from my understanding, early, because of issues on the raft. And some of that sex raft stuff, that might have just been from the times, as you said, because, so people are designed to procreate, so that would be normal if they got involved with each other. But nonetheless, it's 50 years ago now, 50 plus. So different time, different America for sure, but similar social situations, similar themes, and similar, people at odds with each other, differences, so to speak. So that's awesome. You're getting to do this. Is there a Green Beret tie-in with kind of like the teamwork and kind of a survival-esque point that drew you to this project?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely, there's definitely a team dynamic and a team element that's very important. In the military generally, you get it, you're a Marine. You get people in those team rooms, from all walks of life, whether it's a special forces team or, a Marine division, it doesn't matter. It's very diverse, people from all over the country, all over the world, really.
Right.
what we share in common is what we go through, you know what I mean? And the training and the experience from boot camp through, AIT, into deployments, potentially all that stuff. And then also we share, the uniform, the camouflage. It sort of bonds us in a unique way. I think in the special forces as well, a lot of our Green Beret training has to do with, cultures and customs and assimilating and trying to understand people from different, from different perspectives, people that maybe don't believe anything similarly to what you believe. Well, I wouldn't say anything, but, by and large, from a religious standpoint and
Right.
just where they're being from, you go to Iraq, you go to Afghanistan, it's very, very different. But you got to put that stuff aside. And also once you spend time with those people and really listen to their story and who they are and what they care about, generally we're a lot more similar than we are different. We want what's best for our family. We want to feel safe. We want to belong. We want to make a difference. We want the basics: food, shelter, clean water, medical care if we need it, education. These kind of things are very similar. So I think that sort of uniquely positioned me to make sense to be the host for this, but also it attracted me to the show because there's nothing more frustrating from my time overseas than coming home to a divided nation, coming home to a place where people don't even want to listen to one another. And it's like sometimes it feeling like they don't even care what so many of us were willing to sacrifice to go over there and do. And I don't need people, constantly telling me, thanking me for my service or anything like that. But I want to know what I'm fighting for is, a place where people are willing to work together, and are trying to make this country better.
Right.
So that all of that was just so interesting to me. And this is obviously a small little microcosm of a larger problem. But,
Right.
When there's money on the line and you got cameras in your face and people are really getting to see the real you, I think you second guess some things, and maybe you approach conversations a little differently than you normally would. Maybe you grant a little more respect to these other people that are different. You're no longer a social media warrior. It's a very different dynamic, and that was just so cool to me. That it's a competition series. Yes, there's there's money at stake and all these things that are interesting because they do motivate us. But beyond that, there's that Trojan horse of like what the show is really about and why it really mattered to me. And so that's why I think, we're early on here, but we're garnering some very serious attention here and a lot of people that are into this thing and following this thing because I think they believe it can make a difference too, and it matters to them, and it's a very relevant conversation.
Definitely. That's a great way to put it, Nate. Touched on a lot of key points there too, especially with the, you go fight for your country on a team. There's a tribal, there's a good book you should check out called Tribe by Sebastian Younger.
I know it. And I know
Yeah.
Sebastian,
Wow.
that is a great book.
Yeah. It's on our reading list for the Marines. Being still a reservist, I read our commandant's reading list, and a friend of mine who's in the industry shared it as well. He enjoyed it. And that book really brings a lot of stuff home with the tribal sense that you get with, and you see it there on Survive the Raft. You definitely do. You have a tribal sense there, with building with people, and there's some loyalties. Right. Having watched the episodes and watched some of the interpersonal relationships and dramas build, and then also, crumble as well. I won't spoil that for any of the potential viewers or listeners. But yeah, definitely check it out. But you're right. You want to come home to a country where you see people working together and not working against each other or not caring at all, right. Which is kind of sad. Nonetheless, thank you for sharing that part. Would you be able to share just briefly how you became involved in the show?
Yeah, I mean, they had already cast it as far as finding their crew members for the Akali 2.
Yes.
And I love that they rebuilt this raft, so it's just like the original. It's really cool. So they had already done that, and the show was already sort of built out, this idea of recreating this experiment. And I think one of the last pieces of the puzzle was finding the right person to kind of connect that crew to the experience, and really being a conduit for the audience, to connect them to more of the why we're doing this. And, I remember, my agent reaching out, and I'll be completely transparent here. I had, I'd done, like you'd mentioned, I'd done more of the filmmaking stuff, directed, and you came to the premiere of MVP, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And that was something I'm very focused on. I love filmmaking and all this, right? And so I'd had the opportunity in 2019 and 2020, right before COVID, kind of took that away from us, to host a show for the NFL that was sort of an Anthony Bourdain style show called Indivisible, where, we brought people from different walks of life, and had conversations around how football makes a difference in some of these NFL cities, right? And it was a really fun show. And so I enjoyed having that opportunity to host in the past, but I hadn't done it in a bit. And I had been up for and kind of met with some studio folks and read for a couple other of competition series that, nothing wrong with them, good, understand the entertainment value, but they didn't have the piece that this show had, like that, the experiment, really,
Right.
and that social aspect that really challenged the audience as well, to like
Right.
think a little bit differently. Don't always judge a book by its cover, and really listen to these people and try to figure out where they're coming from too, not just the cast members themselves. Like, this is for the audience to really interact in a special way. So when this one was presented to me by my agent, and he kind of laid it out for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is freaking awesome. And he was like, yeah, and I'd met with some folks at Discovery in the past. They're like, hey, they really remembered you, and they love your story, and they want to meet with you like this week, because they're going soon. They're heading down to Panama like next month. And I was like, let's make it happen. So, I went up there and had the opportunity to sit down with them and have a meeting with kind of the whole team. And I was sitting there in the chair in the little boardroom there, like about to explode, because I was so excited about it. Because like I said, I'm not a reality show type guy. Like, that's just it's not really my world. But this was just so different. And I know the power that these type of shows have, the influence, the potential, because of the audience numbers. And I was like, man, this is important. I really want to be a part of this. And fortunately, it all worked out. And, like I said, a month later, we're down in Panama, and we're off to the races. And boy, behind the camera could be a whole nother reality TV show. The challenges that we face, with, it's a first season show, and the weather and all these factors that, where it's just like a mission in the military, man. You can plan all day, and then Murphy's going to bite you day one. And it's the Murphy you never knew existed until it did. And all of a sudden you're making adjustments and shifting on the fly and trying to figure it all out while continuing to make the show as good as possible. Because, if you want to make a great piece of content, no matter what it is, that's got to come first, And so this experiment really had to come first, regardless of all that other stuff. And we got through it, and not only made it happen, but we made something really beautiful, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I enjoyed the show, and it's definitely different than the other reality shows that are out there. It definitely brings its own uniqueness to it, which you definitely add to that. What are your favorite parts about the show?
I mean, my favorite parts are really the cast, and I don't like calling them cast, because that makes it feel scripted to me. They are crew members, but that's also confusing, because there's crew behind the camera. But I mean, when I say crew, I mean the crew of the Akali. You know what I mean? The shipmates. Just because I remember getting there, I remember meeting them the first time. The first time I met them was the first time the audience meets them as well.
Wow.
We're on the dock there in Panama City at Muelle Fiscal is what it was called, and it's a little it's a little shipping pier, and and a little marina, the fishing boats come in, and there's a little market there and all this stuff. That was all real. That wasn't a set. And, they're out there trying to, no. Yeah, it's a real place, man. You should go visit. And they're out there, buying goods and trying to prepare. They got like a very limited amount of time and a limited amount of money to prepare for something that they just found out about minutes ago, that they're going to be out on this raft for 3 weeks. And so, I mean, I sit there, I get on there, and just like anybody, whether you're in the military or not, we assess. Like, that's what we do. We make judgments. We can't help it, at least initial ones, And so I'm looking at this group and I'm kind of sizing them up and thinking in my mind, like, oh, that person looks like they're going to be just fine. That person's totally screwed, whatever. And, this is all internal, and I'm kind of doing that. And then, from the jump, they're all kind of surprising me of like who steps up and kind of becomes that leader, who's out there, running around, being a good follower, like getting things done, you know what I mean? While other people are maybe, I don't want to say arguing, but conversing about what's the best way to do it, and we've got these other people just making it happen. They're the ones just doing it. And, so already my own perceptions are being challenged, which was great. And as the show goes, it just gets more and more like that. Like, I just, the people that I thought would do better in certain situations actually did better in different situations, and vice versa. And those who I thought it would be a slam dunk, this thing, it became quite a challenge. When there's a little bit of stress added to a situation and tension, true colors come out. And those are things you can't see until you really get to know somebody. So that was my favorite part. I mean, not to mention, it was gorgeous where we were. And
yeah, just horrible filming conditions, just awful. I mean,
well,
really,
it was hot. It was hot. We've seen now the first 2 episodes.
True.
And I am just drenched.
Yeah.
That's not a spray bottle. Like, oh, let's make it look hot and sweaty. No, Nate's just sweating. He's sweating profusely, because it's not cold. I mean, we're out there in it, we're standing in that, baking in that sun, and on the deck of the boat, it's probably twice as hot. It's reflecting off the deck there, but I mean, that's what makes it great. It's real, so that's what I loved about it. I think I had my own idea of like, oh, how the sausage is made on some of these things. And I was like, yeah, it's probably pretty contrived and this and that. Not this show, maybe some others, but not this one.
Right. Yeah. I've enjoyed the drama and the teamwork and the different challenges and testing people to see if they have integrity with the money and the ammo cans. And, I don't want to spoil any of the suspense of the show, but yes, there's some definite nail biting moments there with those ammo cans.
Yeah.
And elsewhere too.
And that continues and gets even more intense. I'll tell you that much.
Were the ammo cans your idea?
No, they had, they were called, I made sure they called them ammo cans, because I was like, look, this is what they are. We have to call them this. They called them, they were maybe called boxes or something first. And I was like, nah, those are ammo cans. That's exactly what those are. Let's call them what they are. They weren't my idea though. No, we had a really 250 person crew out there to make this show. Right. So you had all these different departments and the challenge team, in the art department, and these folks, who just like me kind of came in, I don't want to say late to the game, but like, we're coming in like I said, a first season show. It's tough, and things adjust and things change, and you got to deal with what you got sometimes, when you're in a foreign country. And there's just certain resources that are aplenty and certain ones that aren't, and you just make do with what you got and figure it out. And that's one thing I was really proud of for the whole production in general, was people just flexed, people adjusted. We had the changing of the guard early on because we had some bad weather and things happening and changing, and people stepped up and people flew in. They had like 24 hours to get there, and they dropped what they were doing and came in to be a part of this thing, because when they heard about the opportunity and what it was, they were like, this is too good. We have to figure this out. We got to make this happen. And we did. And that was, so that kind of stuff was just, that was really cool. Like I said, there's a whole nother show behind the camera. There's a whole nother show they could have captured that had lots of drama and was very, it was very intense and challenging, but that this is how you get things done in Hollywood, and outside of Hollywood. It really is like, you just got to be relentless, and you've got to adapt. I mean, we've talked about it before offline, Joel. There's a lot of similarities to, military training operations. I don't want to say combat, because no, it's not war, but there is a lot of similarities to that world, and having, being fluid and willing to shift on the fly, and inventive, and just like thinking outside the box. All these things you have to, or you just can't be successful.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
There you go. You said it. Perfect. That's exactly right.
Awesome. Well, let's. Do you think there's going to be a season 2?
I sure hope so. I hope there's a season 10. It's hard to say right now. It's early on. That's up to the audience, just the way it is. I think there should be, absolutely, because I think as this series develops, if we continue on, if we have that opportunity, we're just going to get the concept is going to get stronger, but also the twists are going to change as well. You know what I mean? And the way that we'll conduct the experiment, and the types of people that we'll have on, and, the lessons learned from season 1, all those things will add up, and, create something, even more surprising and different, and hopefully educational, honestly, as we continue on with the series. So I sure hope so, because I do think there's a great opportunity for the show to make a big difference, and, do a lot of good as well, and really help change the narrative in a lot of ways about, who we are as a nation and as a people, and what we're willing to do, and how people are willing to survive, adapt and overcome, and improvise, adapt and overcome, but also survive. I mean, the show is called Survive the Raft. Come on. But I think that opportunity is there, and I would hate to not see it, come to fruition, and really, really blossom into something unique and special, and change with every season. I mean, that would be my hope and my dream. Is like, it's never the same, every season is just different. And with the crew, when I say the crew, I mean the cast crew, the crew of the Akali having autonomy over this experience. I think that's another unique and special point here, where, there are some rules, of course. We've got to have these guys, some sort of guidelines here, but not too much. They make their own rules. They govern themselves. And when it comes to the voting process and so many other things, it's up to them. You choose.
The floating Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it's your society. Hopefully it doesn't end that way, but it's your society.
The structure part, not the ending part of the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've said that before, and people are like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like the idea behind the concept, the genesis of it, really.
Right. Well, great. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Nate. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, Joel.
Seeing season 2 through season 10, if not more, of Survive the Raft. Best of luck for the rest of the season here. And, I look forward to us talking again soon.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much, my man. It's great to see you.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.